Bitcoin is that first thing that you do truly own. Even the land or the property that you might purchase today, I mean, you're basically renting it from the government because you have to pay property taxes. And there's always something that's like slicing away at whatever you do own. But Bitcoin, you do truly own it. And it does give you property rights wherever you are in the entire world. I want people to feel like they're empowered to take risks, to start companies, to pursue ideas, to create innovation, to create new technologies, to solve problems. And we could do that, I think, much more if we have sound money, if we have a form of money that can't be manipulated and essentially that is subject to inflation, which steals from all of us. I actually like that Bitcoin is this trustless or trust minimized technology that you can take self-custody of as a digital bearer instrument. And then you are your own bank and no one can ever confiscate that Bitcoin from you. No one can ever rug pull you.
If you're enjoying the show, it would mean a lot to me if you had hit subscribe and leave a quick rating or review. It helps more people find these conversations and support the mission. This episode is brought to you by Stampseed, the premium solution for backing up your Bitcoin seed phrase. Paper won't last, SSDs can fail, and most steel options aren't built to survive real-world threats. Stampseed uses high-grade titanium and a precise low-tech stamping method that just works. Get 15% off with the code BTCStory at checkout. Mark your calendar as BTC Prague 2025, the highest signal Bitcoin-only conference in Europe, is happening from June 19th to the 21st. I'll be there speaking, and I'd love to see you there too. Plan your trip to Europe's Bitcoin capital and grab your tickets with a 10% discount using code BTCStory. And if you need help getting your Bitcoin off exchanges and into self-custody, or if you're ready to build a robust, bespoke inheritance plan, the Become Unruggable one-on-one consulting program where you will work exclusively with me is exactly what you're looking for. You can find all the ways to reach out to me in the show notes down below. Now, let's get started with today's episode. Welcome back to Your Bitcoin Story podcast. I'm your host, Gigi, and joining us on this episode is someone who's become a powerful voice in the Bitcoin space, none other than Natalie Brunell. You might know her as the host of Coin Stories, a wildly popular podcast where she sits down with top thinkers to talk all things Bitcoin, macroeconomics, and headlines impacting everyday people. But Natalie's not just a podcast host. She's an award-winning broadcast journalist, an educator, a finance advocate for financial sovereignty. Her work centers on empowering hardworking families with the truth behind money and the economy. Today, we'll hear Natalie's own Bitcoin story, how she found her way into the Bitcoin rabbit hole, what fuels her mission, and where she sees this freedom movement going next. Natalie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to it.
It's an absolute pleasure. And it's, I guess, it should be nice for you to be sitting on the opposite side of the table where you're usually having guests on. Yeah. And today we'll switch those roles. So thank you for taking the time to come on. So I guess
sure.
To jump right into it, Natalie, can you share essentially, with your background, as I mentioned, being an award-winning broadcast journalist, how did you stumble upon Bitcoin and what was that spark that really got you intrigued on this technology?
Sure. So I didn't find Bitcoin until about 2017. And when I first heard about Bitcoin, I was really dismissive of it. I thought that because it's digital, it could be hacked. And I really looked at the whole space as sort of speculative gambling. I thought, well, maybe I'll buy some of these tokens. In fact, I thought Bitcoin was a little too expensive. And I thought that maybe it'll be a lotto ticket. I was feeling like so many people my age felt, which is that I went to school, I studied hard, I played by all the rules, and yet it's so hard to make a living and save for the future. I was working as a television news reporter at the time, and although it seems like a very glamorous job, you're really not paid that well. And so I was trying to figure out, like so many people, how do I save up for the house, and the nice vacation? How do I afford a family someday? And I was really struggling with a lot of those questions. And prior to that, I think I had a seed planted for Bitcoin that I didn't fully appreciate, which was that my parents came from another country, from Eastern Europe. They grew up under communism. They came to the United States pursuing the American dream. And I watched them work so hard, only to lose everything when the housing bubble popped in 08, 09. So my family was left bankrupt. We had to leave our home. And seeing my parents go through that really left a really big impression on me, because I felt like there was a great injustice in the entire system. But like so many people, I didn't understand what it was. And I thought that it was just a political force that was behind it, or I thought it was because of corporate greed that all of this happened. I didn't understand that the actual underlying monetary system and banking system created these incentives that essentially rewarded corruption and rewarded manipulation. And I didn't realize that we were all sort of just pawns in that game. And once Bitcoin led me to connecting those dots, it was a transformative moment for me, because I realized that these problems can be fixed through technology, and that we can have hope for a better future, especially if we work together to help people understand and sort of all embark on this journey on, I call it sort of the Noah's Ark is what Bitcoin is to me in terms of our monetary future. It can save us from the manipulation and corruption of the old system. So that's why I'm passionate about education. I started my podcast really as a passion project and as a hobby. I never expected it to become my full-time job, but I'm so grateful that it has. And I'm so grateful that I was able to pivot away from news, which, if you watch news, you probably know it focuses on a lot of the negative things that happen around the
True.
world. And now I get to focus on all the beautiful ways that Bitcoin will fix it.
Incredible. Well, that was an inspiring, so to say, take on your Bitcoin journey, how you got to where you were. And as you said, in your wildest dreams, you never thought kind of the journey would take you the way it did.
Yeah, no, I never expected to be working full time in Bitcoin, much less to essentially be an entrepreneur and to have created a media company and decide, the stories that I get to tell, how I get to tell them. And it's just been so rewarding and fulfilling, because one of the reasons I wanted to become a journalist is because I really loved learning. I loved the
Mm.
idea of getting to essentially ask questions and tell stories for a living. And to this day, I'm still learning things about Bitcoin. Bitcoin really intersects with so many interesting industries and schools of thought and skill sets that I never was exposed to before. I never really studied philosophy or engineering or computer science, and you really can fit Bitcoin into any topic or any industry again. And it just fascinates me. And I've been so humbled by the guests that have taken the time to join me on my show to teach me. All of them are sort of my teachers that I've learned from, and I look forward to continuing to learn and sharing that knowledge with others.
No, for sure. And I fully relate with you, Natalie. Kind of the more you learn about Bitcoin and go deeper down the rabbit hole, the more questions arise. Kind of the more you realize you know less and less about what really happens in the world, right? Which is kind of like the paradoxical thing. But yeah, I wanted to kind of ask you, since of course you had some of the brightest minds on your show, kind of what were some of the, I would say, kind of the most inspiring lessons, like from top of your head, that you could share with our listeners, kind of something that really left a strong perspective on you.
So, those of the listeners who have been with me since the start, since my early episodes, will know this. But a lot of people have come to my show in the last maybe 2 years, and they don't all realize that those first episodes that I recorded, they really are these very evergreen gems.
Mm,
They're still very relevant today, because what I did, again, I didn't intend for the show to be a full time job. What I really wanted to learn was the backstories, the origin stories of all the people that were really prominent in Bitcoin when I was learning about it.
mm,
So think about, Michael Saylor, Lynn Alden, Preston Pish, Jeff Booth. I really wanted to sit down and get to know who they were as people, how they grew up, what kind of backgrounds did they have, their career pursuits and maybe obstacles that they overcame, and how they found Bitcoin and why they grew to have such conviction in Bitcoin. And those stories are just, they can live forever. They're like mini autobiographies. Just hearing where people come from, what they were like as children, what they overcame, their family backgrounds. There are some really interesting stories that have really stuck with me. And those interviews are, I think, my favorite. Now I interview a lot of the same people again and again, so you don't get to hear that original story. But whenever I have a brand new guest, at some point during the show, I try to make it a point just to learn a little bit about them and who they came from, and really, what made them fall in love with Bitcoin, or what made them not like Bitcoin in the case of Peter Schiff or someone like that. So I really love those stories. I really like when people share their life journeys. It's something that's always been very special to me. And when I was younger and I was aspiring to do big things, biographies and autobiographies really inspired me. I wanted to hear that things were possible, and I also wanted to hear that other people didn't always have it easy and were able to overcome. So I really highly recommend those original episodes, because you might learn some things that surprise you about some of the most prominent people in Bitcoin.
No, for sure. And I've listened to some of those earlier episodes, so I can fully vouch on what Natalie said. They are truly evergreen gems. And yeah, highly recommend kind of hearing the backstory. On my concept of the podcast, it's more about how you stumbled onto Bitcoin, and you kind of
Yeah.
take it all the way back to,
Yes.
raising yourself and kind of the challenges you had on your way to kind of to the rabbit hole. But yeah, it's interesting kind of. The takeaway is, I guess, from my perspective, is what most people think, like these people were lucky, or somehow they were born, at the right place at the right time. But at the end of the day, and I want to hear your point of view on it, it goes in line with the proof of work. They all did that work to become where they are. By you sitting on the couch and watching Netflix, your life will not really change much. But if you
Yeah.
put in, your vibration and thought energy into things, then the sky's the limit. You can go, especially today with internet, of course, and with Bitcoin, where you can trade with people all over the world. All 8 billion people can be and are welcome to this network. It's just a fascinating time to be alive.
Absolutely. And it's just amazing the diversity of people that come to Bitcoin from such different backgrounds and
Yeah.
different levels of expertise. To have some of the most brilliant engineers and computer scientists, all the way to the people that have been very successful at hedge funds and in Wall Street and building public companies, all the way down to the average working person, or people that are passionate about advocacy, policy, humanitarian work. It's, again, Bitcoin really intersects with everything. And I just find that to be really inspiring. So that's one of the most rewarding things about my job, is getting to meet people from all these different walks of life, and who have spent their lives and careers doing such different things. And all of them came to that same conclusion, that Bitcoin is really something that everyone needs to pay attention to and study.
And of course, Bitcoin, like I like to mention a lot on my podcast, is kind of, it's this mirror. It gives you the reflection. It shows you the bad flaws in you, and how you can improve yourself. Instead of kind of seeking for answers from the outside, it kind of makes you look on the inside and fine tune yourself. May that be through your finances, may that be through your nutrition, may that be through your fitness, may that be through your relationship with your spouse, with your business partner, with your children. It's fascinating how some code has such significant implications on our lives.
Yeah, one of my mentors is Jeff Booth. I'm so grateful for our friendship and the mentorship that he's shown me. He has a company called Ego Death, and I
Yeah.
think there's no better description than what you experience with Bitcoin, because there really is no ego with this technology. It's really about truth. It's really about speaking truth to power, and the kind of world that we can build on a foundation that is built on something truthful and verifiable, that no one can ever manipulate. And it's just been so amazing to think about all the ways that society could be more cooperative and prosper and create more abundance if we have a system, a unit of account that no one can take advantage of. So it's been really humbling to meet people like him, because I was, once again, when I was working in news, I felt like I was really surrounded by a lot of negativity, not just in the events that I would cover, but also, I don't know, it just felt like a lot of people that I would interview had lost hope in the future. A lot of people have felt like their future would not be better than wherever they came from, or their future wouldn't be better for their children. And Bitcoin sort of reverses all of that and allows us to dream bigger, and again, be more I think, even kind to one another and drop our egos, because this isn't a technology and a system that rewards grift or greed the way that the fiat system does. This is a
Yeah.
system that really rewards value and collaboration and working together to really create things that everyone benefits from in a way that's fairly priced and measured in a way that's more accurate than the current system.
No, for sure. And I think that's something that the world really needs at this point in time, where we're kind of seeing this huge division. May that be politics, may that be religion, may that be, what class you fall into. And kind of Bitcoin really is this kind of collaborative society where it's not like, well, essentially everybody wins in it. We help
Yeah.
out each other to create this better world. And to me, I don't know of any other industry where it's so welcoming and collaborative, because it's always like, well, if I help you too much, you'll steal my clients. But in Bitcoin, there is no kind of my clients. It's all about how do I improve my life and everybody else's around, which is a very zen and peaceful society to be in. So I truly hope more and more people listen to your podcast, my podcast, and all the other resources that are out there, to kind of really have this awakening to maybe life is not, that, that bad after all and negative, but there is light at the end of the tunnel, and there is this new technology which is totally transforming all of our lives. And the pinnacle of it's pre-inception in my eyes. It's barely 16 years old, and in my eyes it's going to be a technology that will be here for thousands of years. So when people say, let me ask you another question, kind of follow up. What do you say to people that ask you, well, Natalie, am I not too late to Bitcoin? What's your answer to that?
Yeah, so we're all very, very early, and I know sometimes it doesn't feel like it. And of course, I wish I was even earlier to Bitcoin. But we really have to think about this, as you mentioned, as this long-term technology. We are at the very, very forefront of something that I think is going to transform the future system for centuries, if not longer. And when you think about the asset classes and how much wealth there is. A lot of it's actually debt, right? So a lot of
Yeah.
it's debt that we can't ever pay back, and they're going to need to print endless paper units to keep trying to pay off that debt as it grows. But really, I mean, Bitcoin represents this tiny market cap. It's back under $2 trillion, whereas things like equities or real estate or bonds, they make up hundreds of trillions of dollars worth of market caps. So if Bitcoin just 10x's from here, that's a massive amount of appreciation and a huge asymmetric opportunity for Bitcoin holders. And yet it still makes it very relatively small compared to these
True.
other asset classes. So we have a long way to go. And I don't see any reason why Bitcoin wouldn't come to dominate some of these other wealth classes, to expand way beyond gold, potentially more than equities. It could eat into real estate and bonds. I'm not sure how it'll all play out, and I'm sure it'll take longer than a lot of us maybe want, because we want Bitcoin to 1 million, tomorrow. But I do think that there's a massive opportunity, and anyone who adopts Bitcoin today, their families and their descendants are going to benefit tremendously.
No, for sure. And, kind of the upscale for it is, as you mentioned several times in your mentor, Jeff Booth, which I'm a huge fan of as well. He talks a lot also about kind of the valuation of Bitcoin. If you divide it by the total market cap of all the monetary assets, it comes out to like $48 million. And
Yes.
people go, well, how is that possible? But then the more you dig deeper into it, you realize that Bitcoin is the most profound and sound asset class that there ever is. There is no maintenance. It's not like real estate where you need to
No.
renovate your stuff, or gold where you need to have in a vault and have security guards and have all this audits and everything. It's truly fascinating that you can have your Bitcoin
Yep.
stored in self-custody with 12 or 24 words, and nobody can access it. No government, no agency, no mafia. Nobody can take it out of you unless, you of course give up your seed phrase. And that is such a powerful, simple technology.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with everything you said.
So following up from that, Natalie, what's your take on self-custody? That's something that I really focus a lot on. And actually last month, I've also kind of started your Bitcoin story as a hobby project on the side in the summer of 2023. But as of this year, I've gone full-time into it. So focusing really to kind of try and put out the message of how people's lives are being transformed from it. And my next leap was launching a self-custody mentoring service called Become Unruggable, no pun intended. Because I think self-custody is so crucial in the space. We've seen in the last 12 months, the ETFs come out and everybody's talking about the ETFs. But to me personally, kind of you holding an ETF is not true Bitcoin. It's just paper Bitcoin. It's essentially a contract that, yeah, I hold this position, I entered at this price, but you don't hold the keys, which to me is the most vital thing when it comes to Bitcoin and having a sovereign life. How come, Natalie, and what's your opinion? Why do so many people still not self-custody their coins? May that be through ETF holdings, may that be through just simply holding them on exchanges and thinking everything's going to be fine until the exchange gets hacked, or the founders rug pull the whole exchange. Why do you think we're not seeing so much self-custody, and why is that such a kind of, I wouldn't say taboo, but like untapped part of Bitcoin, which to me is one of the most vital pillars of it?
Mhm. Well, I think a lot of people see risk to self custody. It's almost like they don't trust themselves. What's ironic
Hmm.
about that is the reason I actually started to take self custody is because I didn't trust these exchanges. We live in a world where we have to trust institutions, and those institutions have continually broken our trust. And we see some of these institutions failing us over time. And so I actually like that Bitcoin is this trust list or trust minimized technology that you can take self custody of as a digital bearer instrument. And then you are your own bank, and no one can ever confiscate that Bitcoin from you. No one can ever rug pull you. You can never wake up one morning and see that your balance has been changed. That's something that I think is really empowering. But I also understand that for people who think that Bitcoin's very technical and they see self custody as sort of intimidating. I can understand why they might be a little bit nervous, but that's one of the reasons why I do the educational work that I do. And I've done tutorials on how to take self custody, because it is not as difficult as people think. Anyone can do it. Any person of any background and any age can take self custody. And there are so many tools and services out there that make it easier. Like the Bitcoin Way is a team that's fantastic that I have leaned on to learn how to take, not just self custody, but how to actually enhance my online privacy, for example, because we put so much of our data online. How do we protect ourselves so that people can't find every piece of information on us or find everything that we do online? I use the Cold Card wallet as my primary cold storage wallet because I just like that it's open source and very simple. It looks like a calculator, or they have the one that looks almost like an old BlackBerry, like it's a little bit
Yeah.
bigger with a QWERTY keyboard kind of look. I mean, these are really simple devices if you just take the time to follow the steps and go to self custody. But I'm also a huge proponent of multi-sig self custody. So you don't want a single point of failure. Once you set up one of these cold storage wallets, it's no more difficult than putting things on a cold, like a hard drive, right? That's
Yeah.
basically how technical it really feels if you really get into it. But you don't want to have things just laying with one seed phrase or one device. You want to diversify. You want to decentralize your risk. So I recommend companies like Casa, which I use for decentralized self-custody, multi-sig or multi-key custody. And then you could choose the kind of situation and setup that works best for you and your family and your loved ones. Or you could get someone involved that's an estate planner. I don't know how complicated people want their sort of treasure
Set up to
hunts to
be.
be.
Yeah.
Yeah, some people like to go really complicated. Some people like it a little more simple, but you have so many options and choices. And that's really what I think is best in the space, is when we have a lot of options to choose from, when there are solutions available that feel approachable for non-technical people like me. And so I just urge people to do a little bit of homework, because again, today you just never know. Banks can end up hacked themselves, or exchanges can end up hacked, like we've seen. You want to be able to hold that asset yourself so that you decide what to do with it when you want, on your terms, and you get to know that you are holding something that no one can take from you.
Yeah, I totally agree with all those things that you mentioned. With the multi-sig setups, I think that that's a super powerful step that people that are already in self-custody should be considering. And self-custody, it's not this endpoint, it's this like beginning journey of your full sovereign kind of state. You also need to, keep track of it, make sure that your recovery plan is also good, not just, moving it to cold storage and then, forgetting
Yeah.
about the seed phrase. There's a few
Yes.
components, but as you said, Natalie, it's not rocket science. Likewise, myself, I'm not technical, but over the years, I feel like it's becoming easier and easier. And as I think as we progress and more user-friendly UXs happen and different softwares come around, it's going to be easier and easier. And I truly hope if anybody listening to this episode, you still hold your Bitcoin on
Yeah.
exchanges, please, after this episode, go out, do some homework. If you need Gigi's help, I'm more than happy to help you out. But yeah, really move your coins to self-custody, and don't live to regret it, because you never know what tomorrow holds.
Yeah, people really just need to do a little bit of homework because I see simple mistakes being made every single day. I hear of people emailing themselves their seed phrases. I hear people putting things in the cloud, which the cloud can get hacked. You do not want to do that. These are things that one or two online videos on YouTube that we have will tell you just, very simply, this is the protocol. Don't do that to keep your Bitcoin safe. But I agree with you that just taking the easy or convenient way out and leaving your coins on an exchange, I also don't think that that is the safest option.
Yeah, but I guess, as in all things in life, sometimes until the person gets burnt, they don't
Yeah.
realize, maybe they should have
Yeah.
taken a little bit more serious. But shifting from the self-custody talk, I wanted to bring up one point, which is focusing a little bit on the middle class, which today is kind of evaporating with inflation and everything we have, kind of the economic climate that we're living in. We're kind of seeing the richer really getting richer and the poorer demographic really expanding. What's your take on, do you think Bitcoin is kind of this savior for the middle class, which is kind of slowly really struggling and narrowing out? Because, Bitcoin, some people may think, oh, it's only for the rich, and then the people that the poor ones can't afford it. But then kind of the middle class, I think, is a dying out class. And to me personally, I think Bitcoin is this kind of savior to not just save the wealth, but actually preserve it for their kids and future generations. What's your take on that, Natalie?
Yes, I'm very nostalgic for the 1980s and 90s where I felt growing up like there was a strong middle class. Of course, that's just my own personal opinion, and my family wasn't even in really the middle class, but I saw it around me, and I felt like people had really good, comfortable, stable upbringings, and it wasn't anything lavish. It wasn't, multiple vacations and mansions and yachts and all of that. It was just like a comfortable sort of the white picket fence, safe American upbringing that we picture from, I don't know, movies.
Yeah.
And that has sort of deteriorated, and now my peers in my age group, which is millennials, a lot of them have chosen not to have children or postpone having children because the financial aspect is really, really stressful. And while it's great that people have been able to achieve more career wise, especially women in my age group, they're achieving things that they never have before, and they're ascending to roles that they never have. At the same time, when you feel such a pressure that you can never really take a step back because the financial aspect is weighing down on you, and you feel like one income is not enough, that literally does prevent you from taking that next step in your life that is really priceless and so valuable. Because at the end of your life, yes, maybe you look back and you're proud about your career accomplishments, but your career is not going to hold your hand when you're at the end of your life. It's going to be your family and the loved ones and the community that you created. And so if you have more time to devote to your personal life, I think that that's such a blessing. That's a gift. That's really the best present that I think the wealthy have, is the flexibility they have with their time to do what they want. So I think that Bitcoin is such an important tool so that people in what used to be a strong middle class can save again, and their children can save, and they feel like they can actually have more freedom to make the choices they want to make in their life. So that's why I think it's imperative that the middle class really learns about Bitcoin, and that they don't dismiss it, because we are getting more and more polarized. And I think people are getting increasingly frustrated, and they're turning to political, I don't know, political views that I think actually are a detriment to productivity in this society, and look at things sort of the wrong way. So I hope that people look at Bitcoin, but it's really challenging to reach that sort of
Mm.
normie crowd in the middle, because so many of them, I feel like it's almost like they've given up hope and they're so busy in their lives, busy with their jobs that they have, that they think Bitcoin again, oh, it's too expensive, or oh, I saw the crypto crash. It's really difficult to reach that sort of group in the middle that used to represent the middle class, and yet it's the most important group, I think, to reach. So the more educational outreach and the more educational efforts that we have, the better. But that's why I think like we just need voices, as many voices as possible, to represent this group so that they start to say, hey, maybe I should allocate at least a little bit of my portfolio to this and take it seriously, as opposed to just dismissing it and assuming that things will never get better. Because I do have a lot of friends that are sort of in that category. They won't look at Bitcoin no matter how many times I've told them about it, but yet they feel like they have no hope and no way out in terms of their financial struggles. So I don't know what we can do to really bridge that gap, but I urge people, if you have someone that you can share the Bitcoin message with, do it, because every person matters, and every effort really does matter.
Yeah, you touched upon some really powerful points there. You know, the first one with which is kind of a detriment with the drop in fertility rate due to financial constraints that people are not actually having children anymore, which, as you said, it's the most sacred and the most, you know, the most important thing that every person should have is going through parenthood. You know, I myself have two young, beautiful daughters, a 5 and a
Oh,
3-year-old, and that was one of the reasons I pulled out of my fiat rat race, where I was actually
yeah.
working 2 fiat jobs, crazy
Wow.
hours, recording podcasts at night, and still trying to raise 2 young kids and be a husband at the same time. It just
Wow.
became too much, and then I said, you know what, forget, you know, reaching these financial goals. Let me just invest into my children and be the father that I want to be. Because as you said, when you're on your deathbed, no matter how big of a yacht you have in the port, that's not going to hold your hand. It's the kids that will be there with you. And that's something that Bitcoin, you know, I really want to share with people. It gives you that freedom of time. You can borrow time from your future. So by you saving in Bitcoin, it's not to buy that fancy car, but it's more to have the freedom to, you know, at some point to just, you know, call quits with the corrupt world and really focus on what you want to do. May that be starting a business, may that be you always wanted to paint and you become a painter, or whatever it is, you know, really following the passion project. So, you know,
Yeah.
I can fully relate with those strong points that you covered.
Yeah, I mean, just think about all the things you could do if you had more time, if you could buy yourself back the time. And that's what I'm jealous of with regards to the ultra wealthy.
Mm,
I'm not, envious of people that are working from 6 a.m. until midnight. I'm envious of the people who get to actually take some time and relax and have people over and entertain and have a bunch of children around, and they get to know their children's friends, like people who have time to give to other people,
yeah.
essentially, like to spend really quality time as opposed to just hunched over, on our devices working and slaving away. It's like it's such a gift if you can just spend more time really with your loved ones and with your family members and with your friends. I think that that's so amazing, and being able to have the savings to do that is the best gift of all.
For sure, you know, and the fact with, you know, as the saying goes, the rich have a lot of money, but the wealthy have control over the time. And, you know, the time
Yeah.
aspect, I cover it and I go into a lot of depth in it on this show as well, because it doesn't matter if you're Michael Saylor or you're, you know, the barista in the coffee store, you all have 60 minutes in an hour and 24 hours in a day. It's not like the rich have more time. It's just they have the control over their time, which I think is super important as kind of as we progress as humanity today with technology, you know, and especially with AI, which is, you know, can really automate so many things. And you can, you know, have a dedicated coder in your browser and create so many incredible things.
Yeah.
You know, it's really the time to be creative and pursue an entrepreneurial path, even if you thought that's not for you. Today, it is possible. And Bitcoin as this kind of time capsule, and as Satoshi, you know, described Bitcoin as a time chain. A lot of people still
Yep.
haven't even read the white paper fully. There is no blockchain mentioned
Mm.
anywhere in the white paper. It's the time chain, and Bitcoin really, you
Yeah.
know, recalibrates your perspective on time. And you know, I
Yeah.
like this saying. I had a guest some 6-7 months ago on the show where he left a quote that really felt, you know, stuck close to me. He said, "Stack sats, stack time." And
Mm.
that, you know, that really relates to, you know, by holding your savings in Bitcoin, you are really saving your time, and at some point you have the full utility of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's something where I hope that I can use my Bitcoin to buy back my time someday. I'm just not there yet. I feel like I'm actually probably working more than I've ever worked, but at least it's in something that I find more fulfilling than anything else that I've ever done. So that's been an exciting part.
Which doesn't feel like work, Natalie. When I was growing up, I was raised in well, prior to entrepreneurial term, tradesman family. We were always traders, buying, selling stuff, and my dad had so many different businesses, and I was always telling him like, Dad, what do I do when I grow up? And he told me a quote early on in my life, which took me a while for me to understand it, but he said, "Son, if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life." And I said,
Yes.
"Well, how is that possible? Like, if I'm working, I'm still working." But then, as on the journey that I am, you and many other people in the space, kind of we are working long, hard hours, but we love what we do. It doesn't feel like, this tedious job. And we wake up in the morning, we're like, oh my God, I've got this
Yeah.
call and I need to do that thing. It's a
Yeah.
different type of work. And at the end of the day, like when people say, oh, at one point, I'm just going to quit and retire. Well, that's also not fun because we as humans, we are creative animals. We need to create something, we need to do something. So
Mhm.
like this idea of going to school, finishing college, working this 9 to 5 job until we're 60, 65, and then just retiring and living 20 years stressed out with hair, most likely with cancer, many different diseases, and then we just pass out, doesn't sound like a lifestyle I want to be living. And with Bitcoin, you can really focus on your craft and you can offer your service or your goods to the whole world in this beautiful monetary system called Bitcoin, where there's no sanctions, there is no hot topic tariffs, there's not
Mhm.
many restrictions, and I mean, the fact that Gen Zs now that are essentially the biggest population, biggest generation in the world, they kind of have this new freedom tool at their fingertips to really pursue the freedom lifestyle that they can live. Unfortunately, I feel like Gen Z's have too many, they've kind of grown up in this digital era where it's all like they have an attention span of a goldfish. Like them reading the Bitcoin standard is like passing a high school exam. Like it needs to be really short content. But then I guess we try and do that as well as content creators, doing short clips on TikToks and YouTube Shorts to try and kind of plant these seeds in the Gen Zs and, kind of give them that beam of light to be a little bit curious, just like maybe listen to one show or read just an article. But yeah, it'll be interesting how things unravel because I'm also really hopeful. As much as people are pessimistic on what's going to happen, is this World War III going to go down, or what is this next big pandemic going down? But at the end of the day, there's a lot of beautiful minds working collectively to build this new paradigm. Um, and I'm really, excited and positive in any way I can, contribute to it. I feel like I'm doing the right deed because our time, going back to the time factor on this planet, is super, super short. Every day, like it just, I don't know how it feels to you, Natalie, but like it feels like I just woke up a few hours ago and it's nearly already midnight on
Yeah.
my end. Like the day just goes like this. So really, cherishing and enjoying every moment because the only real time is right now. You could be, with your husband, or I can be with my wife, or we can be sitting here shooting this podcast. So, it really focuses, Bitcoin really gives you this focus on prioritizing your time factor.
Yes, time flies. And there's so much to do. It's funny, when I was in news, I thought that was overwhelming because it was a 24/7, news can happen at any time.
All
You
the
wake
time.
up, you have to go cover it, but Bitcoin's also 24/7 and there's just so much to do. But it's great because we love Bitcoin, right? But absolutely. With regards to Gen Z, people like Ella Huff really give me a lot of hope, and the people that are creating initiatives like Generation B to really educate
Mm.
their age group about how empowering this technology is. And one thing that I've heard is a lot of Gen Z is still really interested in crypto at large as opposed to really focusing on Bitcoin. So I hope more work is done there to help them appreciate sound money. I think a lot of Gen Zers grew up again in this digital environment where things have gotten so expensive and out of reach that a lot of them don't even don't even expect to own things like a house. And
Mm,
there's something kind of sad about that, right? Because something that was very core to the American dream is that sense that you own something, you actually truly own it. And this is something that Michael Saylor says, like, there's really nothing you truly own except Bitcoin. Bitcoin is that first thing that you do truly own. Even the land or the property that you might purchase today, I mean, you're basically renting it from the government because you have to pay property taxes. And
yeah.
there's always something that's like slicing away at whatever you do own. But Bitcoin, you do truly own it. And it does give you property rights wherever you are in the entire world. And that is something so important and fundamental and core to the American dream and the foundational values that created this country. So it makes me really excited about the future.
I mean, from that perspective, how you put it, Natalie, very beautifully. Like, you know, I think Gen Z should listen to this episode because it gives a lot of hope and kind of perspective on really owning the real thing that you can actually own,
Mhm.
which is your Bitcoin. I guess another question going in line with what we just discussed was kind of what is kind of the one biggest hope factor that you have for the future that we have with Bitcoin, with everything that we see happening today?
My biggest hope is probably again that we have a revitalization of the American dream for the average working person. I want the middle class to have a revival and a renaissance and feel like they're valued and like they can contribute positively to society. I don't think that it's healthy when people are essentially just living to work. Um, and their whole life is just, they're 9 to 5 and reporting and clocking into a massive corporation, and bosses that will never really, care about them in the way that their loved ones will care about them. And everyone at some point is really replaceable. I just don't like that environment. I want people to feel like they're empowered to take risks, to start
Mm,
companies, to pursue ideas, to create innovation, to create new technologies, to solve problems. And we could do that, I think, much more, if we have sound money, if we have a form of money that can't be manipulated, and essentially that is subject to inflation, which steals from all of us. So I want the middle class and everyone to have inflation proof money so that they can really have a savings from which they can make decisions about their futures and take some chances on things that maybe they feel like they can't right now. I want everyone to be empowered with choice, and savings and really freedom so that they can have a future that's more secure.
yeah, no, totally. You know, on the aspect of choice, it's always good to have a lot of choices, not to be stuck down to one little parallel that you have, and
Mhm.
and that's it. You put it very beautifully. You know, kind of this taking risks, which a lot of people um, that don't have kind of a good job, and also people that have a really good job, is kind of it probably is even harder for them to kind of take a risk because they're like, well, things are comfortable. I
Yeah.
get my paycheck, maybe that $10,000, $15,000 a month. You know, it's fine, but then they're not happy with how life is. And as we just spoke briefly, life goes lightning fast, so you better take that chance because you don't want to be on the deathbed regretting it. And I guess Bitcoin gives you that kind of that push off the cliff to really go and pull that chance, because you have something to fall back on. And as you said, you have an asset that's deflationary as opposed to inflationary, where every day your money in the bank buys you less things. With Bitcoin that you hold on the long term, tomorrow you don't know, the price might be 10-15% down, or it might be 10-15% up. But in the long term, if you're looking at cycles every 4 years, no matter if you bought at the peak, you're still going to be better off than holding it in a savings account. And essentially, with inflation that we're seeing post COVID, with so much money printing that happened, everything by the day is getting more expensive, and it's harder and harder to get by. So it's kind of a, to me personally, it's a no-brainer to be on a Bitcoin standard as much as you can. But I guess I just kind of try and push the message out to more and more people to start allocating. May that be 5-10%, and then slowly as they learn more, they're like, well, maybe I'll go higher with my allocation in Bitcoin. We're like,
Yeah.
maybe it's a safer bet.
Yeah. I mean, everyone has to start small. And that's how I did too. Again, I was
Yeah.
so worried that whatever I put into Bitcoin, I would lose. And now I feel super comfortable with the majority of everything I have in Bitcoin. And I just hope that, I can help other people really feel comfortable to take that first step to learn about Bitcoin, to download a wallet, to purchase their first Satoshis or earn their first Satoshis. I just think that that's the most important, that first step through the door where you kind of, you're skeptical, but you want to take a chance, because for so many, including myself, it has transformed my life and given me hope back in the future.
Amazing. I don't know if you're reading my mind, Natalie, but I was going to follow up with, which I close off with all the episodes. What is one piece of advice you would give to someone starting their Bitcoin journey? But you kind of just explained it right there, like start small, get a
Yeah.
wallet, get the feel for it. And I think that's super important because, a lot of people say, education is key. I agree, education is key, but unless you have skin in the game and you actually dip your toes in the pool, you will never know the temperature of that pool. You really need to go and start off small. And I fully agree with you. You don't want to jump in the deep end of the pool. You don't want to go and put all of your savings, dump it in, and in 3 months'
Right.
time, the market is like 70% down and you're panicking and you sell at the bottom. That's like
Yeah.
how many stories I'm sure you've heard as well, Natalie, people entering at the peak and then like panicking, not knowing what to do. They're going to lose it and they sell it and then they just live to regret it. So
Yeah.
if you start small, I mean, you're in the safest bet you could. And DCA, as I'm sure you will agree, Natalie, is kind of the best strategy. Just buy a little bit every month, weekly, bi-monthly, monthly, whatever it is. Just keep on stacking. And as long as you have more sats at the end of the month than you started, you're in a good shape to a sovereign future.
That's right. I buy every single day because I know the second I step out the door, I'm going to spend $5 or $10 on something. Why not have it be Bitcoin? That's the great thing. Again, people think you need to buy one Bitcoin. Nope. You could buy $5 worth of Bitcoin, and anyone can just start really, really small, or offer to do some services and earn Bitcoin for a job. I think that anyone is capable of accumulating Bitcoin, and I think it's one of the most important things that you could do, especially right now.
For sure. And as McCormick termed it, it's the cheat code, right? If you offered your Bitcoin, your service for Bitcoin, you essentially are kind of like this orange magnet pulling in all these people that actually want to support, entrepreneurs that are selling their products and services for Bitcoin. Perfect. Well, Natalie, I know we are a little bit short in time, so I will stick to the timeframes that we have. Natalie, where can we send our listeners that, for those who are not already following your podcast show, but all the educational stuff that you're doing, where's the best place to send them to learn more and go deeper?
Sure. So my podcast is called Coin Stories. It's available on all podcasting and video platforms, including YouTube and Rumble. I also share my episodes on X. I also have a book coming out, so people can pre-order.
Nice.
Bitcoin is for Everyone. That's going to be a great, really approachable introduction to Bitcoin, what problem it solves and why it's really important. And then feel free to reach out. People can email me at info@talkingbitcoin.com. I love to hear from people or get guest suggestions. And thank you so much for having me on the show.
Thank you so much, Natalie, for taking the time. It's been a pleasure. I can take one thing off my Bitcoin bucket list. I really, since starting the podcast, I have my special guest to have on, and Natalie, you were on that list, so I can tick that one off. And I'm really happy that we had the opportunity to really discuss this and share this insight with the listeners, and hopefully the middle class and the Gen Zs that are listening to this episode can, take the right decisions and move in the right direction. Natalie,
thank you so much.
All the best of luck with the book launch. I'm looking forward. I'm an avid reader. I try and read nearly all of the Bitcoin books that come out. There's plenty. There's more and more of them coming out. As we do with the podcast as well. But I'll definitely be getting a copy of that. And I look forward to connecting with you in the future. And best of luck with everything you have going on. You're doing an incredible job, and thank you for your service.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in. If this episode resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with others who might benefit too. Your support keeps us going, and we appreciate it. See you in the next one.